This is the Life by Design with Angela Weiss podcast. Chronic pain, chronic illness, and mental health, the overlap no one talks about. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, a kind of grief that doesn't come from losing another person, and sometimes the person you're grieving is yourself. The version of you who could make plans without wondering how your body would feel that day. The version of you who could wake up and simply get dressed without calculating your energy. The version of you who didn't carry medication everywhere you went, who didn't know the location of every bathroom and every exit door, who didn't have to explain why the lights were too bright, why the noise was too much, or why you needed to sit down, why you couldn't eat that food, or why you canceled again, or why something that looked easy to everyone else felt impossible to you. Today we're talking about something that deserves far more attention than it gets. The intersection between chronic pain, chronic illness, and mental health. Because the body and the mind do not exist in separate rooms. When one suffers, the other hears it. And sometimes people living with chronic illness are treated as though their emotional symptoms somehow make their physical symptoms less real. They don't. You can have anxiety and have real pain, and you can have depression and have a real autoimmune illness. You can have trauma and have legitimate gastrointestinal symptoms. You can have migraines, chronic fatigue, inflammatory conditions, neurological symptoms, chronic pain, or other invisible illnesses while struggling emotionally, because living inside a body that repeatedly limits you is hard. Mental health symptoms do not invalidate physical illness, and physical illness does not make you weak for struggling emotionally. Pain and depression often travel together. Anyone who has lived with persistent pain understands something that can be difficult to explain to someone who has not. Pain occupies space. It interrupts concentration. It changes sleep and it steals patience. It can change appetite, movement, motivation, intimacy, work, hobbies, relationships, and the ability to enjoy things that brought pleasure. Imagine waking up every morning already hurting. You already hurt and you haven't even done anything but open your eyes. You haven't gone to work or dealt with your family or your pets. You haven't faced the demands of the day, and your nervous system is already saying, something is wrong. Day after day, eventually that can affect your mood. It's not because you're weak or because you're being negative, but because chronic pain is relentless. People may begin withdrawing from activities because they physically cannot tolerate them, and their world becomes smaller. They exercise less and socialize less. They travel less or see friends less. They may work harder. Financial stress may increase. Sleep becomes disrupted, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the peace of life that once protected mental health can disappear. Then someone looks at that person and says, "You seem depressed." Of course they might be. The better question may be, what is this illness taken from you? Anxiety can amplify pain without making the pain imaginary. It's another area where people often feel dismissed. Someone mentions anxiety and suddenly they hear, it's probably just anxiety, but anxiety influencing pain does not mean the pain isn't real. Our nervous system is constantly scanning our bodies and our environment for change and danger. When we're anxious, the nervous system becomes more vigilant and the muscles tighten, breathing changes, heart rate changes, sleep can deteriorate, and we become more aware of our physical sensations. And when the brain believes something may be threatening us, it can essentially turn up the volume on all those signals. Think about a smoke detector. If it becomes extremely sensitive, it may start sounding the alarm when you toast, when it burns. That doesn't mean there's no smoke. It means the alarm system has become highly reactive. People living with chronic pain can sometimes develop a nervous system that has been sounding the alarm for so long that it becomes increasingly sensitive. And then anxiety about the pain creates another layer. What if it gets worse? What if I can't work? What if nobody believes me? What if this never goes away? What if the doctors can't figure this out? What if something serious is being missed? Now the person isn't just experiencing pain, they're experiencing fear of pain. And fear itself changes the nervous system. This is why good treatment should never simply say it's physical or it's psychological. Human beings are more complicated than that. Inflammation, the brain, and food There's also growing recognition that immune function, inflammation, neurological signaling, hormones, sleep, stress, and mental health are deeply interconnected. And the brain is part of the body. That sounds obvious, but healthcare sometimes behaves as that, like, mental health floats somewhere outside the human physiology, and it doesn't. When the body is dealing with ongoing illness and inflammation, hormonal changes, disrupted sleep, nutritional problems, chronic stress, or persistent pain, people can experience changes in mood, cognition, motivation, and energy. This may look like brain fog, irritability, difficulty concentrating, low motivation, fatigue, sleep changes, anxiety, or depressive symptoms. And that's why mental health clinicians need to remember something incredibly important. Not every psychiatric-looking symptom begins with a psychiatric disorder. Sometimes we need to ask, what's happening medically? Has something changed? Are there medication effects? Is the person sleeping? Are they deficient in something? Could hormonal changes be contributing to this? Is inflammation involved? Is there an underlying neurological, endocrine, autoimmune, gastrointestinal, or other medical condition that deserves investigation? Mental health care works best when we remain curious about the whole person. One of the most painful parts of chronic illness is something medicine rarely puts on a treatment plan: grief. You may grieve your old body, your old energy, your old independence, your old career, your spontaneity, your sexuality, your friendships, your ability to travel, your ability to parent the way you imagined, your confidence, sometimes even your identity. There can be a very specific heartbreak in remembering who you used to be. You see pictures from years ago and think, I had no idea how healthy I was, or I didn't realize that was the last time I would be able to do that. And chronic illness can create a strange kind of grief because the thing you're grieving may not be completely gone. You might still be able to do something sometimes, just not reliably. So every invitation requires calculation. Every vacation requires planning. Every commitment carries the question, what if my body does not cooperate? There are often no symptom cards for this kind of grief. No funeral, no formal acknowledgement. Life simply keeps moving while you're trying to figure out how to live inside a body that's changed the rules. And that deserves compassion. Migraines. Sometimes people minimize migraines because they hear the word headache. But anyone who has experienced significant migraines knows that they can affect much more than pain. Light can hurt, sound can hurt, movement can hurt, nausea can occur, vision changes happen, thinking can become difficult, and one of the psychological consequences of repeated migraines is anticipatory anxiety. You begin wondering, will I get one today? Can I make it through this meeting? Can I drive? Should I cancel these plans? Can I even commit to this trip or anything? Will the weather trigger one? Will I wake up with one? Sometimes the fear of losing another day becomes its own emotional burden. Then we have autoimmune and other chronic illnesses. These long-term medical conditions can be particularly difficult because symptoms can fluctuate dramatically. Someone may look perfectly healthy one day and unable to function normally the next. And that inconsistency can create enormous misunderstanding. And people think, well, you're fine yesterday. Yeah, I was, and that was yesterday. Chronic illness isn't always constant. Sometimes illnesses flare, and sometimes symptoms cycle, and some conditions are affected by sleep, hormones, stress, weather, infection, activity, or countless other factors. A good day doesn't prove someone was exaggerating the bad ones, and a bad day doesn't erase the progress that they've made. Both can exist. Fatigue is one of the most misunderstood symptoms. There is tired, and then there is fatigue. Tired may say, I need a nap, and severe fatigue may say, taking a shower feels like a major task. My limbs feel heavy. I can't think clearly. I slept 10 hours and I still feel exhausted. Imagine trying to participate in a normal life while everyone around you assumes that you simply need more motivation. That misunderstanding alone can create shame, and shame is heavy. GI illnesses and mental health. The gastrointestinal system has a way of, well, it's just got a fascinating relationship with mental health, really. Stress can affect digestion, and anxiety can affect digestion, and gastrointestinal illness can absolutely affect mental health. Someone dealing with unpredictable nausea, diarrhea, abdominal pain, food intolerance, reflux, inflammatory bowel symptoms, or other GI problems may begin planning their life around their bathroom, meal, and medication habits. They may avoid restaurants, travel, dates, long meetings, car rides, planes, concerts, anything where they fear they may not have control. And what looks like social anxiety from the outside may actually begin with, what if my body betrays me somewhere I can't escape? That's an entirely different conversation. Then there is perhaps one of the most painful parts of all. Looking healthy. Invisible illness creates its own kind of loneliness. People might say, well, you look great. And sometimes you want to answer, I know. That's part of the problem, because when people can't see your illness, they may struggle to understand your limitations, and you may become very skilled at masking the issues. You smile. You work. You put on makeup. You show up. You take care of everyone else. You post a picture from the one good hour you had that week, and people assume that you're fine. They don't see what happens afterward. They don't see you come home and collapse. They don't see the medication, the heating pads, the dark rooms, the ice packs, the canceled plans, the tears, the fear, the doctor's appointments, the bills, the insurance calls, the lab work, the waiting, the uncertainty, or the energy it took to just look normal. There are people walking around us every day fighting battles we cannot see, and sometimes one of the greatest gifts we can give another human being is simply believing them. Chronic illness can also create a profound identity crisis. If you were always productive, what happens when you can't produce the same way? If you were the caretaker, what happens when you need care? If you were independent, what happens when you need help? If your identity was wrapped around your career and body and suddenly limits what you can do, who are you now? These questions can feel terrifying, but this is something I want you to hear. You are more than what your body allows you to accomplish today. Your worth isn't measured in productivity, and your value isn't calculated by how many things that you check off a list. You are still you on the days when you conquer the world, and you are still you on the days when getting out of bed is an accomplishment. Healing may require grieving first. Sometimes we rush people toward acceptance, and we tell them to stay positive, to look for gratitude, to find the lesson, to keep fighting, and hope matters, and it does. But sometimes there is something that needs to happen before hope. Grief. Sometimes you need permission to say, this sucks. I didn't choose this. I miss my old life, and I'm angry. I'm scared. I'm tired of being tired, and I'm tired of doctors, and I'm tired of appointments, and I'm tired of people not understanding me. I'm tired of explaining myself, and I'm tired of wondering how I'm going to feel when I wake up tomorrow. Those feelings do not make you ungrateful for your life. They make you human. Acceptance isn't pretending you like what happened. Acceptance is learning how to build a meaningful, beautiful life inside a reality as it exists now. And that process takes time. Mental health treatment for someone living with chronic illness should never be about convincing them that their physical symptoms aren't real. It should help them carry what is real. That might mean learning ways to calm an overactive nervous system, processing grief, addressing depression, treating anxiety, learning pacing instead of pushing until the body crashes, developing boundaries, and helping family members understand limitations, rebuilding identity, improving sleep, finding meaning, learning to advocate in medical settings, or simply having one place where the person does not have to pretend that they're okay. Sometimes treatment isn't about removing every hard thing. Sometimes it's about helping someone create a life that is still worth living alongside circumstances they would have never chosen. And if you love someone with chronic mental illness, believe them. Don't consistently ask whether they've tried the latest supplement somebody mentioned online. Don't compare their illnesses to your cousin's friend's neighbor who had something similar. And don't tell them they would feel better if they exercise more unless you're their treating professional and understand their condition. Don't assume that because they went somewhere yesterday, they can go somewhere today or tomorrow. Don't make them repeatedly prove how sick they are. And please don't make them feel guilty for canceling. Instead say, I'm glad you told me. What would make this easier? Do you want company, help, or space? We can change the plan. Those words can mean more than you realize. If you live with chronic pain or chronic illness, I want you to know something today. I see the effort no one applauds. The mornings you wake up and keep going through, asking your body what it's going to or not do today, and the appointments, the tests, the uncertainty, the fear, the constant adjustment, the plans you've canceled, the things you've had to give up, and the moments you've smiled about because explaining how you felt seemed too exhausting, and the grief you may still carry for the version of yourself you remember, but your life did not stop being meaningful when your body changed. Maybe the goal isn't becoming exactly who you used to be. Maybe part of healing is slowly discovering who you are becoming now. A person who knows themselves differently, who understands compassion differently, who notices suffering other people miss, who knows that strength doesn't always look like pushing harder. Sometimes strength is resting before you completely deplete yourself, and sometimes strength is saying no. Sometimes strength is asking for help, and sometimes strength is allowing yourself to grieve, and sometimes it's waking up in a body that feels difficult to live in and deciding, I'm still going to build a life here. Not a perfect life, not the life you imagined, but one that contains meaning. Connection, beauty, purpose, joy, rest, love, and hope. Your illness may be part of your story, but it doesn't get to become the whole story. If this episode reminded you of someone that you love, send it to them. And if you're the person living with pain or illness that other people can't see, I hope today's episode made you feel a little less alone. Please remember that persistent changes in pain, fatigue, mood, neurological symptoms, gastrointestinal symptoms, or other physical symptoms deserves appropriate medical evaluation. Mental health support can be an important part of treatment, but it should never replace evaluation of physical symptoms or the need for medical attention. This podcast today was for educational purposes only. If you feel like you're in a crisis, please call 911 or 988 in the United States or Canada. Thank you for listening today. You can follow, like, share with others. I'll put my author website in the show notes. You can follow me on Instagram at Angela Weiss Author or on Facebook at Life by Design Press. No matter who you are or where you're at, I hope that this was helpful for you today. Thank you.